Good morning, class. For today, we will discuss the concept of the scientific method. The scientific method enables biologists, as well as all other scientists, to study life and nature. But before we review the steps of the scientific method, I would like you to hear a short story, a true-to-life story. In the 1970s, a Filipino researcher from the University of Utah named Baldomero Toto Oliveira heard stories of Filipino fishermen dying after pulling in their nets. According to medical reports, the men were not suffering in agony, leading researchers and clinicians to dub the tragic outcome as painless death. A lot of insect or snake venom has acetylcholine in it, which reacts with pain receptors so you get throbbing pain. But in this case, the person seems to die from a heart attack because they can't breathe. It turned out that most of what the fishermen caught in their nets are snails known as Conus geographus, a marine mollusk that produces some of the most potent venom of any cone snail species. The ultimate cause of death then seemed clear, but the details of how this cone snail toxin can kill made the fishermen and researchers more curious. Dr. Oliveira, who is also affiliated with the UP Marine Science Institute, gives massive credit to Filipino fishermen who work on the first stages of the research. They identify the seashells, know where to get them, and how to handle them. They do this with no expensive equipment, just their expertise and prowess in the sea. Their lab at UPMSI started extracting the venom from these snails. In order for them to understand better how these venoms work, they have a very simple setup. They would take a mouse, put them upside down on a wire screen. They would inject the fractions of the venom into the mouse and observe its behavior. Some of the behaviors observed were the mouse became sleepy, thus the protein from that venom was called conantukin. Another mouse kept on pushing or hitting the walls of the cage, and the protein that caused it was called contolakin. Their research generated many proteins that have great potential to be painkillers. Some of them actually became a commercially available drug like Prialt. On a side note, an American pharmaceutical company, Ellen Pharmaceuticals, read their published research and repeated their experiment to produce Prialt. Dr. Oliveira and his fellow researcher from UPMSI, Dr. Lourdes Cruz, were not given royalties for this because they failed to get US patents for many peptides they isolated and identified during the course of their 15-year research project on Conus snails. For other information on the killer cone snails and the research of Dr. Oliveira, you may click on the pictures. This research, as well as others, can be described using the scientific method. There are 6 basic steps in this method, traditionally performed in a specific order. To remember the steps, you may use the acronym P, R, H, E, A, C, which you may compare it with a simple breakfast: plain, rice, ham, egg, and coffee. But what does PRHEAC stands for? P stands for problem. In our story, the problem came from the observation that many fishermen were dying of unknown cause. In science, observations leads to questions. R. R stands for research. Asking questions is at the heart of science. In order for you to answer these questions, you must do a background research on the topic. In this case, the information gathered within the community was very helpful. H. H stands for hypothesis. To answer a scientific question, scientists must create a tentative explanation or hypothesis. In this case, they assume it was the Conus snails that may cause the death of the fishermen. E stands for experiment. Systematic observations, controlled experiments, and detailed studies are all ways of testing the validity of a hypothesis. In the story, they use a simple mouse model. A stands for analysis. After a comprehensive series of tests, the scientist is now ready to provide explanation or analysis of their data. C stands for conclusion. Concluding statements can help to refocus the reader's attention to the most important points and supporting evidence of your arguments or position that you presented in your research. Conclusions can also serve as a basis for continuing research, creating new ideas to resolve an issue, or offering new approaches to a topic. Both scientists and engineers contribute to the world of human knowledge, but in different ways. Scientists use the scientific method to make testable explanations and predictions about the world. A scientist asks a question and develops an experiment or set of experiments to answer that question. Engineers use the engineering design process to create solutions to problems. In real life, as you can see from these two figures, the distinction between science and engineering is not always clear. Scientists often do some engineering work, and engineers frequently apply scientific principles, including the scientific method. Keep in mind that although the steps above are listed in sequential order, you will likely return to previous steps multiple times throughout a project. It is often necessary to revisit stages or steps in order to improve that aspect of a project. Finally, research is considered cyclical because questions leads to data collection, which leads to interpretations and then to new problems.